Ek eigen die wete. My verlede is in die verlede. Die prys is betaal. U het opgestaan, gekroon met u liefde. 'n kind in die huis van my Vader. U hart openbaar, 'n liefdesverhaal. Oh, ek staan hande omhoog in elke storm se oog. U is by my, ek weet die koning is hier. En ek is geliefd. Die belofte oor my het elke vrees laat verdwyn. U is vir my, ek weet die hemel is hier. En ek is geliefd. Ek staan in verwondering. U het my naam uitgesonder vir die res van my dag. Sal ek dit verklaar in Jesus se naam. Sal my storm bedaar. Ek staan hande omhoog in elke storm se oog. U is by my, ek weet die koning is hier. En ek is geliefd. Die belofte oor my het elke vrees laat verdwyn. U is vir my, ek weet die hemel is hier. En ek is geliefd. Want so lief het God die wêreld, so kosbaar is ons vir ons. Dis genade sonder perke, dis hoe lief hy is vir ons. Want so lief het God die wêreld, so kosbaar is ons vir ons. Dis genade sonder perke, dis hoe lief hy is vir ons. Ek staan hande omhoog in elke storm se oog. U is by my, ek weet die koning is hier. En ek is geliefd. Die belofte oor my het elke vrees laat verdwyn. U is vir my, ek weet die hemel is hier. En ek is geliefd. Ja, ek weet die koning is hier. En ek is geliefd.
There is peace as I behold your majesty. There is hope that is alive inside of me. There is joy that overwhelms my everything. I'm your poem of redemption, your symphony of praise. I'm your masterpiece of mercy, your tapestry of grace. I'm your poem of redemption, your symphony of praise. Oh, innocent and blameless, I take my rightful place, created in Christ Jesus to magnify your name. Your glory floods the earth as the waters fill the sea. Your glory moves my life into endless victory. Oh God Almighty, you've called my name to be the bearer of your grace. God Almighty, you've called my name to be the bearer of your grace.
Thank you for joining our online service. If you found
can take your seats. It's awesome to be with you this morning, and it's good to be home. I think there's something of putting a window down and waving your hand to in front of a sensor that opens up home. Okay, so most of my high school career, we were in Clarksdorp. Okay, so and now still that, I don't know who of you have been there lately, but I mean, as you drive in, the moment you have to drive on the side of the road just to miss the potholes, and the moment you hit one of them, it feels like home. Okay, so there's something of home, and it's the same here. I think you, for those of you who don't know me, I'm AJ, and my wife and I and our family were here at Midstream for a while, and it's good to be with you guys again. It's good to share your word, to share the word. And funny thing about Clarksdorp is, Johan, we actually had in our school, we had a period where like young pastors would come and just invest into classes, and Johan was one of those guys that were in my class. Okay, so the thing is, what I remember of him, okay, like, he had a bit of hair. I mean, like, really, that made me jealous. Now, I've been bald for quite a while, and so God just made a few perfect heads. The rest he covered with hair. But it's great to be with you. And I trust that what I'm going to share this morning will have an impact in your life in such a way that it will increase the impact that you have in the world. That as we as a Doxa Day family, as we look at the concept of love throughout this year, and as our theme for the year, we have looked at a few aspects of love at the first quarter of this year. And what I want to share today is not necessarily as, listen, this is how you love, or this is how you have an impact. But what I want to trust God in just install in your heart this morning is how can I position myself for impact? How can I position myself so that I'm useful, that God can use me in this world? Because the calling I have over my life, and the calling you have over your life is far bigger than you could ever imagine. But there's a certain intentionality that we need to live with for us to step into spaces and to establish God's kingdom and to bring His love and His way of doing things into spaces, that we need to be intentional, that we need to position ourselves for that impact. And I want to take you into the story of Philip and the minister, or the Enoch. And just a bit of background. So Philip is busy doing his own thing, and God speaks to him, and He says, "Listen, I want you to go south with this road." And Philip goes, and we pick up the story in verse 26, where the angel is speaking to Philip, right? And he says, "Now an angel of the Lord said to Philip, 'Rise and go toward the south to the road that goes down from Jerusalem to Gaza. This is a desert place.' And he rose and went. And there was an Ethiopian, Enoch, or a minister. He knew he was a minister because there was black BMWs with blue lights. And he saw a court official of Candace, the queen of the Ethiopians, was in charge of all her treasure. He had come to Jerusalem to worship and was returning seated in his chariot, and he was reading the prophet Isaiah. And the Spirit said to Philip, 'Go over and join this chariot.' So Philip ran to him and heard him reading Isaiah the prophet and asked, 'Do you understand what you are reading?' And he said, 'How can I unless someone guides me?' And he invited Philip to come up and sit with him." I'm going to complete the story. So the end of the story is if Philip eventually sits with him in the chariot, and whatever that conversation was with regards to what the minister was reading in the book of Isaiah, the impact Philip had on his life, because just a few kilometers down the road, eventually, the minister gave his heart to Christ. He gave his life to Christ, and he got baptized, as we saw this morning, and he got baptized. And the impact Philip had on his life and that conversation, what he experienced in Philip's life, had an immense impact on his own life in such a way that God turned his life around. And I pray that this morning, that as we go into this world after what you've heard this morning, that will be our story, that the spaces where we step into, that people will, that we will have an impact on people's lives. And I want to give you 3 concepts that we pick up in the story, which I believe Philip did right to position himself for impact. Okay, so the first one is we pick up in verse 27. And he says, "Now an angel of the Lord said to Philip, 'Rise and go toward the south to the road that goes from Jerusalem to Gaza.'" So, and it's interesting, God is speaking to him and he's saying, listen, go south. He's not telling him, listen, okay, great. You know, when you go south, just watch out. There's going to be a chariot. Right, this is what I want. This is what's going to happen. This is what you're going to see. No, God just says, go south with this road. And here's what Philip does. He goes and he says, listen, okay. And he rose and he went. So there was something of an obedience of Philip, knowing that God has called him to make a difference. And here's one concept, is that you and I, if we can realize that we are a present to the world, that you have been called, within you is the capacity to change this world, and God has called you for a time such as this. Now, we all have that one friend that we think, they think they're God's gift to mankind. I mean, okay. But here's the thing, there's something of a truth in that. There's something that person realizes, that I believe if we can do that in humbleness and in love and realize that you are a gift to mankind. That God has called you. And doesn't matter what your opinion over yourself is, doesn't matter what your life looks like, doesn't matter what your past looks like. That God has called you to be a gift. Now you get 2 types of gifts, right? All right. So you get sort of the weird old school socks, okay? That you get, and then you get the air fryer, okay? So something that's useful, something. I mean, we do everything in our air fryer, but it's a gift that we receive that's useful. That brings life, that enhances our lives. And my question for us today is, what kind of a gift are you? Are you the kind of gift that people don't really like or want? I mean, we all have that one person in our family that we don't want to invite, okay? To say we have a braai and we have a family over. I mean, there's always that one, like you make it so difficult for them. You invite them, but with the invitation, you tell them all the challenges they will have to get to you, okay? So, because when they step into a room, when they step into an environment, it's as if the whole environment, the whole feeling of the environment just goes down. I mean, it's that one person that's so negative and everything. And listen, every single one of our families has that. All right? So if your family doesn't have one of those, it might be you. Just kidding. Okay, so but here's it. Can you imagine the impact we can have if we decide and know that God has given us as a gift to this world, that He has given you as a gift to your workplace, when you step into a boardroom, when you step into a meeting? Are you the gift that brings life? Are you the gift that people want there? Or are you the one that they don't really want there? The one that breaks down, the one that everyone's tentative because you are in the room and they don't know what to expect. When we get to our families, are we a gift that brings life, that's useful? See, because God has called you. He's called you and I to make an impact, and He's given you everything you need to have that influence. But it starts with the place. I mean, it's so easy to see other people in our lives as a gift to us, right? Look at our families. I look at my kids, my wife. They're a gift God gave me. But for a moment, and may we live lives that we realize, listen, but I am a gift to them. I'm a gift to this world. Doesn't matter what my opinion over myself is. God has called me for impact and to love a world. And then in verse 29, it says, and the Spirit said to Philip, go over and join the chariot. So Philip ran to him and heard him reading Isaiah the prophet. Now here's one thing Philip did right. He was present in that moment. He was present in that moment. And if you and I can commit ourselves to a place where we say, listen, I'm going to be present wherever I go. Now, there's a guy, Nur Ihel, and he wrote a book called Hooked. Now, he's sort of the biggest influence on Silicon Valley and on the whole algorithm of social media and how we get hooked on that. Right, so he's the reason you go and look at one post and 45 minutes later, you don't know where the time went, okay? And you know what exactly is happening in everyone's lives, all right? But he realized, listen, he's created a monster. Right, that we live in a society that's so distracted that he wrote another book called Indistractable. Now, indistractable is the antidote for hooked, all right? So he gave the sickness and the medicine in one go, and he said, listen. So the book Indistractable is based on two things, and he uses the concepts of traction and distraction. And he says, listen, things that we do that creates traction in our lives are the things that we do that builds relationships, that drives us towards our vision, our goals, where we're heading towards. Now he did not say this in the book, but it's the stuff that we do that drives us toward God's plan for our lives and what He wants us to do. And distraction, on the other hand, is things that we do that take us nowhere. That we actually lose traction in our lives. So the wheels are spinning, but we're going nowhere. And it's stuff like, say, for instance, the examples he uses is social media, etc. And he says, listen, that we will not live distracted lives. That we focus so much on distraction because it's taking us nowhere. And here's the thing, if we get to a place where we say, listen, I know I am a gift to this world. But wherever I place my feet, wherever I go, I will be present in that moment. Because that is what Philip did. He went and he walked alongside the chariot. But what happened? He heard. So he was intentional to be present in that moment, is to say, listen, why am I here? Why is God telling me this? And he heard an opportunity. And he took it. And because he was intentional, because he was present in that moment, he could take that opportunity and he changed someone's life. Now, our daughter, Sky, is 7 years old. And I mean, when we look at something that creates traction and distraction, it can be as simple as to how do we live just in our own homes? How present are we there? Because, I mean, a while back, my wife and I, we were sitting on the couch doing our thing, and kids are playing on the floor. And about the 5th time, Sky said, Daddy, Mommy, we actually heard her. And she was there, and she looked at us and she said, you guys don't play with us anymore because you're always on your phones. I'm like, okay, great. Dad of the year. Woo. But it's an example of spending time, something that takes away traction in my life, and almost missing an opportunity to step into a space where I can gain traction with my relationship with my daughter. That we will be present. That when we step into a boardroom, maybe you're in a situation where your work situation currently is not conducive for you, and you're not happy, and it can so easily get to a place where we disconnect from that situation. We only do what's necessary. God has called us to say, listen, no, in every meeting you step into, in every place you go, in every social environment, be present, because I've called you. And you don't know what opportunities I can give you. And if we're not present, if we're distracted the whole time, if we're not intentional, we might miss those opportunities. Now hear my heart. There is time in our lives where we can just take a break. I mean, think of nothing. We as men do it perfectly, okay? We have a nothing box where we can literally think of nothing, okay? Now, there's time for that. But if it takes away, as I said, if it gets to a place where it takes away traction, we can lose impact in our lives. That you and I will be committed to say, I'm going to be present. Because God has called me. When I'm with my friends, when I'm with my family, I'm going to be present. Because every now and then you might hear something. You might see something. You might experience something in your heart. And God wants to use you in that space. Maybe, just maybe, He wants to use you in a boardroom, in a meeting, and say, listen, I want you, He can give you wisdom in situations, and you can turn a company around. You can turn people's lives around because we were present. We were there. Because sometimes we're there, but not all there. So let's be present. And then the last thing is just, you can just imagine Philip's whole life, his demeanor, his words, the love he showed, the impact that it had on a minister. See, Philip realized something, that he was called, and you and I are called to present Christ to this world. To present Christ and to represent Him well. That as we looked a few weeks ago at just us being made in His image and Him as the prototype of who we are, that will stir something in our heart, that I have the capacity to present Christ to this world, and that I have been called to do that. That I can go into spaces where when everyone's proclaiming hate, I will bring love. When everyone's speaking and saying there's no hope, I will speak hope. I will bring hope. When everyone's down and out, I will come into spaces and I will lift them up. I will step into spaces because God has called me to be a gift to this world. He has called me that I will be present in that moment, and that I know that I can present Him to the world. That's why he said, there's that passage where he says, listen, This is how people know that you are my disciples, not the things you post on social media or the nice things you say, but the way you love one another, that we will love one another in such a way that we present Christ's love to the world. Because then we will start getting to a place where people's lives will turn around, where we will get traction in our lives, knowing that I can present God to this world. There's a scripture in Ephesians 5 verse 15, and can I ask the worship team to maybe come forward? And he says in verse 15, he says, look carefully then how you walk, how you live, not as unwise, but as wise, making the best use of the time, because the days are evil. Verse 17, therefore do not be foolish, but understand what the will of the Lord is. Be careful then how you walk. See, now all of a sudden, when I realize that I can present Christ to the world, that I've been called to do that, now I'm starting to align my life. There's a few things that I stopped doing. There's a few things that I'm working on as AJ, because I know not to impress God or to make Him love me more. But I know I am called to present Him to the world, and there's areas in my life that I need to sort out, because I'm not presenting Him to the world. And when we get to that place, we look at our lives and we just evaluate, listen, I'm a gift. I'm going to be present, but what am I presenting to this world? Just be careful then. And I love how he says, listen, but understand what the will of the Lord is. The one translation says, but try to understand what the will of God is. And that's the amazing thing. Like many times we wait and say, listen, I want to know what's God's exact plan for my life, and then I can go into action. It says, listen, no. In every situation, everywhere you place your feet, every place that you go, every moment you are in the company of people, to ask yourself, listen, God, what do you want me to bring to the table? What do I need to present in the situation? What do I need to present in a social setting? God, guide me what your will for this situation is. That if we just look at our church life and I mean, that we will be, you are a gift to this church. You are a gift to each other. That you have got something in you that only you can bring. There's influence you have in a world out there that only you can bring. But in this concept of church, you have something that only you can bring. And let's be present. Whether it is on a Sunday, whether it is in your group life or a course or whatever you might be doing, let's be present and present God's love and Him to the world. 2 Corinthians says, your lives are a letter anyone can read. Maybe I can ask myself, what are people reading in AJ's life? Guys, there's a world out there that needs us, that needs you, that needs the gift of you. Can you, with me today, just make a commitment and say, God, I'm going to be a present that brings life. A gift that brings life. Lord, guide me and help me that I will be present, knowing what your will is in every situation. And guide me in my life, and how I can live a life that presents you in such a way that it has an impact in people's lives, just as Philip had in the minister's life. Now we're going to sing a song. Now Christ be magnified. And don't you want to make that a proclamation over your own life? Say, Lord, may my life, may you be glorified in my life. May you be glorified through my life. That there's a passage in the scripture that says that people will see your good works, but give God all the honor. And may that be our story. God be magnified in and through my life, so that I may present you to a world and I can represent you well. So don't you want to stand with me there where you are?
Thank you for joining our online service. If you felt the need to be prayed for during the service, please contact our office or Life Center with the number provided on the screen. And if you are nearby, please come and pop in at our Sunday services at 10:30 or 6 p.m. May you get overwhelmed with the love of God this week.